thank you again for everyone being here. It's really lovely to see you all, and I really appreciate your support of my work and your interest in my work. I'm recording this, so it's going to be played back afterwards. So if you like to have your camera off, please feel free. You don't have to have it on. And I'm aiming for a maximum of an hour and a half for this session. Last time was an hour, but we want to see if we can cover and talk about a few more of the images than we did last time. So this is a safe space. Please be kind and compassionate, not only to other people, but to yourselves as well. Hi, Ray. Ray, you're in Wales. Lovely to see you, Ray. This is a space of deep noticing as well, deep self-noticing, and it's a place of, Ray, no judgment of yourselves, of others, and of the art. So I'm Kath, and I create spaces for people to notice themselves better through art using the felt sense. And I do this through photography, mentoring, and I take people on news. Someone else coming in. And I do my technique for photography, which is feltful photography, although it always seems to get autocorrect baffled. And then also, obviously, in my exhibition, why we're here today. We're not here to like or dislike, we're here to feel it. And you can't get your feelings wrong at all. So I invite you to put your likes and dislikes at the virtual door, look into your body, and notice what's coming up for you.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kath, and it may be just me, but I've got sort of echo and breaking up. Is it just me?
No, yeah. I've got it as well.
Same here.
Okay.
It sounds like it might be a mic issue, Catherine.
I think it's echo because we're not all muted.
Oh, right, yeah, if you can all
do that.
Is that better? Okay. Thank you. You can be my tech for me, Paul. So yes, park your likes and dislikes at the door, at the virtual door, drop into your body and notice what is coming up for you in response to the art. Allow this information to help you notice where you're at, what you need, and what might change as a result. Hate Modern is my third online exhibition, and it was created via an open call inviting photographic responses to the impact of hate in the modern world. And as with my previous two open calls, I had entries from all over the world, which is absolutely amazing, including Europe, the US and Canada, the Republic of China, the Republic of Korea, Russia, Bangladesh, and Lebanon. In the most recent Home Office stats for England and Wales, which was first quarter of 2002, 70% of hate crimes 70% of hate crimes have been noticed as being racially motivated, which is up 20% year on year, which is really shocking. Transgender hate crime is up by 56%, religious hate crime by 37%, and sexual hate crime by 41%. With this open call, I wanted to give artists the opportunity to submit to a difficult subject and in turn be a platform that helps bear witness to the impact of hate. And what I've noticed through this open call is how the impact of hate is hugely varying and nuanced, often going unnoticed or ignored. Hate Modern is a tiny snapshot of the impact, and I hope it offers a place to reflect on what comes up for us whilst looking at the art. Photography has long been used as a tool to help us connect and to cultivate compassion, helping us to remove the me, you, and us, them mentality. My passion lies in using photography and all art to help us connect and cultivate compassion for ourselves first and foremost, so we can do so more easily, the same with other people. I hope you enjoy the exhibition. Please feel free to go to feelmorecreative.org/feltphotographic to view it. So what's going to happen today is we're going to be chatting with the panelists about what the selection process was like for them, and then responding to a selection of the exhibition. And I'm really thrilled that we do have at least two of the artists here today, so hopefully we'll be able to hear from them. And before we do that, I'd just like to ask the panel, my lovely panel, to introduce themselves. And Amanda is here. Hi, Amanda. So yes, so please, if you can just introduce yourself, really quickly, we just go around the panel. So Kay, Paul, Nanette, Saba, and Amanda. Oh yes, sorry, if you can introduce yourself and just tell everyone what you're passionate about, that's what I would like to find out.
You said my name first, so I'm going for it. Is that okay? Right, so I'm Kay, and I have been at various times a scientist, as a biophysicist, a advertising strategist, a business consultant, but really finally coming back in my late 60s to what I really want to do, which is write ranty, angry poetry and dance. And what I'm passionate about, and it spills over into this topic, my passion spills over into anger, because my biggest passion from childhood is equality. And I am furious at how long it's taking. From, I was brought up by a pretty feisty grandmother who was a suffragette. And I'm just furious that we are still fighting for equality in all sorts of ways. So yeah, I'm Raging Kay, and it's really nice to meet you all.
I'll go next. Hello, everyone. I'm so wonderful to see all these beautiful faces. I live in Maine in the US, and for the past 15 years or so, I've been a portrait photographer. Before that, I worked for the Department of Corrections with all male inmates for years. And so I do have kind of a background in those kinds of things. Now I primarily do portraiture for women over 50. I just finished a big project a few months ago, 33 women over the age of 50, basically looking at what makes them the woman they are today. And one of the things I'm really most passionate about is reminding women that it's still wonderful and okay and necessary to pursue our dreams after the age of 50 and 60 and 70, and that we should never stop pursuing our dreams. And that is probably the thing that I'm the most passionate about, whether it's in my writing or my photography or my groups of women that I congregate. So that's pretty much it. So thank you for having me, Catherine, again.
Pleasure, as always. We'd like to go.
We're all being very polite. I'll go next. Hi, everybody. Lovely to see you all. I'm Saba. I'm a lived experience speaker on trauma and discrimination. And it always sounds weird when I say it, but my passion is violence against women and girls and hate crime. So my work today is all advocacy, working with the criminal justice system and the police, building communication between the various communities to improve the services they receive, mainly with around cultural abuse, but also the LGBT plus community with a focus on trans women. Thank you. Should I just pass the baton to Paul? There you go. I'm putting you on the spot.
Saba. Hi everyone, I'm Paul, I'm in London. I loved how Kay started, like, here's things I've been, because it made me think, what have I been? I've been a mushroom picker, I've been a shop assistant, I've been a prison psychologist, I've been a sexual health educator, all those things. And at the moment, I'm a coach, a mentor, a facilitator, and a writer, living here with my husband. And yeah, what am I passionate about? I mean, everything that everyone has said so far. The first thing that comes to me is being passionate about conformity, or people's obsession with conformity. And my passion is to try not to conform in whatever ways I can, miniature acts of rebellion. And yeah, sharing this feeling of anger about where we are as a civilization. So yeah, this is great to be involved in, to tap into some of that. So yeah, great to be here.
Thank you, Paul. And finally, Amanda.
Good evening, everybody. I'm London as well, Paul, and I really chuckled at what you have said around being a nonconformist. It's a nice way of I guess, being a rebel. And yeah, I guess being that way is around anger to a system that is so unfair in so many ways, and it doesn't need to be. So I think I would describe myself as a free spirit. I enjoy creativity. I enjoy expressing myself in various ways. I'm an ex-teacher. I experienced burnout some years ago, and now train people in mental health first aid, inspiring people to recover through poor mental health and live an abundant life. So nice to be here, and I'm really looking forward to gaining some insight and learning something new.
Thank you, Amanda. Don't mute yourself just yet, because I think I'll stay with you, if that's all right. So what we're going to do now is to ask the panel just to briefly explain what the selection process was like when they were looking at all the submissions, the selection process for the final exhibition, and what they perhaps noticed in that process. Are you happy to kick off, Amanda?
I noticed a shift in sensation, I guess, in the body. You feel drawn to an image for different reasons, and those reasons will either, I guess, exhibit or bring out different energies or facial expressions, reactions. So it was interesting. It was very interesting, and obviously we all see the world differently. So seeing the world through someone else's lens just makes you kind of wonder what was going on for the artist, and then you then consider how other people see it. It's very, yes, it was a journey. It was a journey in a nutshell.
Nice, thank you. And actually, I should really explain the process. So I took the panelists through all the same process, which was a visualization, and then the invitation to drop into your bodies, like I've asked you all this evening to do, and to notice which images they're having a strong response to. And it's not to make sense of it, but just to notice at the beginning and then to do the sense making afterwards. So that was basically the process. And with that in mind, Amanda, when you were looking and selecting from that space, were you selecting images that you would have normally selected, do you think, or was it different in any way?
I think I was selecting based on what I wanted to see again. That was my process. That's how I made my decisions. I thought, oh, I don't mind seeing that again. That's nice, even though it was, themed around hate. So yeah.
Thank you. Saba, would you like to tell us how the selection was like for you?
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing for me was how desensitized I felt around the images. So for me, a lot of the images were really beautiful, and I really liked them. And I was like, how can that incorporate hate? And I think that's because my work is very trauma driven. I see so much hate on a daily basis that for me, it's like really extreme. And I think it really brought home how simple things can be hate for people, how simplistic hate can actually be, and that it doesn't always have to be the big things. And I was kind of really torn between two pictures, and the one that I didn't choose probably kind of correlates more to the work I do, and I think that's why I was really drawn towards it. But I was trying to think outside of my kind of usual box. So but I did find a lot of beauty in it. Yeah, and I love the fact that there was so many different types of images as well. The two things that I didn't see, which I really thought I would, was I didn't see sort of any kind of crying or pain, which I thought I would have seen. And The other one was there wasn't anything violent, which sort of really intrigued me, because I suppose when I think of hate, I think of it in quite set terms. So I think, yeah, it definitely sort of made me kind of come back and think, gosh, I need to maybe be a bit more sensitive. I don't know if I can be any more sensitive, but yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was, and I just thought the work was beautiful.
Amazing, thank you. Kay, what was it like for you?
It's well, I actually want to thank Amanda and Saba for making it easier for me to express what it was like, because what it was like for me was all felt stuff, and so for a long time I couldn't find the words, but you two have helped, so thank you. And I've realized that as I looked at each picture, I became a different version of myself. So the one I chose as my favorite, for example, I was child me when I was looking at that. In some of them, I was angry teenage me. In some of them, I was furious old lady me. So yeah, each picture I looked at through a different K lens, which was really interesting. And I think also that in turn helped me to realize, very sadly, how hate in me had been learned. I wasn't born with hate, but I learned it through other people's responses and through different experiences. And I also love, I think as you, Amanda, said, which ones do I want to come back to? And I realized that much as I loved, my gut response to so many of the images was very positive, but I didn't want them hanging on my wall. There is some art that I need to keep at arm's length, and some, if you can see behind me, I've got lots of art on the walls, but I have to be very careful about what art I put on my walls, because I have to live with that. So yeah, it was, I brought different versions of me to each image, which was very interesting. So thanks.
Thank you, it's fascinating. If I can turn next to Paul, who this is Paul's second time as panelist for Felt Photographic. So what was it like for you, Paul, doing it again?
Easy, like and I joke about that because I honestly, the first time I did it, it was just impossible, because I think still stuck in that space of, what do I know about art, and judging stuff by, do I like it or is it good? And I think the first time I went through this process, I think what you did, Kath, for me was to shift like how I look at the world. I mean, this has been such a massive transformational process for me. Now, every time I go in a gallery, and actually what happens is I get like maybe 3 or 4 in, and I notice I'm going, oh, do I like it? And then I go, hang on, back to the start. Is it making me feel anything, regardless of whether I like it or not? So actually now I feel like I've learned that superpower, thanks to you. This was easy because I could just tap into that. I didn't care if I liked it. I didn't care if I thought it was good. It's none of my business if it's good. It was just, did it make me feel something? The difficult thing was so many of them made me feel something. And even, the one I went with as my kind of selection for tonight, I still get angry when I think about it. So in that respect, job done, that you were able to help me feel things differently rather than see things differently. So yeah, dead easy and horribly hard.
Feel that. Thank you, Paul, very much. And then finally, Nanette, who is my panelist in residence, so she has been with me on this journey from the beginning. Was it like for you, Nanette, third time doing it?
Each time has been completely different in so many ways, and then the same in other ways. This one, I went into it sort of, I'm sort of a girl looking through the world in rose-colored glasses kind of person. And I even remember saying to Catherine, like, I think this is going to be hard for me. I know there's a lot of hate in the world, but I really try to focus on the positive. And but boy, the image that I ended up coming up with for my final really did make me really angry. But the hate, I believe, came from within. It was an image that made me feel so many feelings around how I felt about myself and my body. And so it was really more of an internalized at first. And then the more we looked at that one image, I was able to take it out further to like other women. And it really has had a big impact on me. I've done a lot of thinking about that image. And the biggest piece that it does for me each time is makes me look at my own art differently. So when I look at the photographs that I take of a woman, generally said over 50, I'm really looking at now from a perspective of, do I feel something about this versus is it a pretty photograph? And I mean, I still probably pick some of the really pretty photographs to put in my clients' galleries, but I'm really putting in the ones that I feel something to. And I find that those are the ones that are getting the biggest reactions also from, you know, the client, from other people seeing them. So it's really changed me, like Paul said, you know, it's really changed me too. And I think mostly in the way that I look at my own art, which is huge. So I love the process. I get super excited about the process, and it amazes me how quickly it goes, how quickly I can say yes and no and get right down to the business. And that just that mind, I mean, I can, when I get into the place in my body to be able to do the process, it blows my mind that I can get down to those, you know, 2 or 3 so quickly. And I love it. I get excited about it every time.
Amazing. Thank you very much, my beautiful panelists. Okay, so let's dive into some art. So I'm going to share my screen. We've got 5 images. We will look at them in turn, and we will look at as many of them as we can. But apologies in advance if we can't get to them all. I will try to be able to get to them all. So I'm going to share my screen.
You've got a question in the chat, Catherine.
Thank you. How long on average would you say you viewed each image for? That's a very good question. Not long. I didn't let the panelists look for very long because I didn't want them to start thinking about what they were looking at and rationalizing their response. So it was a strong response, yes or no. And if literally there was any more than a second or 2 thought, I will defer to them saying no, because it wasn't a strong enough yes. So I mean, you know, as Nanette was saying, it's very clear where the strong yeses and nos are. Second or 2 the first time round, yes. So what the process of selection is 3 stages basically. Is viewing the whole gallery on a slideshow, which is, you know, basically a second, really maybe a little bit longer per image, and then we come to the culling. So it's a very quick fire, yes or no. Do you want it? Do you not want it? You know, are you having a strong response or not? And that is very quick. So yeah, it's as instinctive as possible. So it is the truest felt sense possible. Does that answer your question? Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so Sabah said, agree, pretty immediate. You either felt something or you didn't. Does anyone else want to add anything to that before we move on? No. Okay, cool. Right. So the first image we're going to look at is Apollinaria's. So this is Sabah's choice. Can you all see that okay? Brilliant. So Sabah, do you want to kick off with how this image makes you feel?
Yeah, I don't know. I just, even now, like I just felt like a real knot in my stomach. It's just that hand kind of reaching up for help. That's how I viewed it. And the red color really resonated with me as well. So the color played quite a big part for me. And I think it's obvious, well, it's not obviously, but it looks like a female hand. And I think that thing about, you know, and also kind of coming out of a shawl or a scarf. It's just like that, reaching for help and nobody being there, and like the red sort of just reminded me of blood and darkness and gore. So yeah, that kind of hit me. And I think also I did immediately, I thought, oh gosh, like periods came into my mind and menopause, and the fact that you can't speak about women's issues. There's so much taboo about these things. So it just brought up so many different feelings for me. It wasn't just the one, and that was like quite quickly. Yeah. I'll carry on, but I'll stop there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Saba. Thank you for your choice. Any of the other panelists like to jump in with their responses?
I'll say something. I kind of want to echo Saba's sentiments around, was it Saba that was speaking? It was Saba.
Yeah.
Around women's, but being a woman and being able to express, the reality of womanhood in this world. I feel like there's a lot of shame around womanhood in so many ways, whether it's through over sexualizing the woman, rape, domestic violence, assault, oppression, not having a voice, not being able to express anger safely, not being heard. The list goes on. Womb health, being a Black woman in the UK. The list goes on. Generational trauma, healing, childbirth. It's a very powerful picture. I see a lot of pain, I see a lot of oppression, and I see a lot of silencing for women all over the world in this image. Exhaustion.
I'll jump in just briefly. It feels very scary to me, but I think for all the reasons that you both have already mentioned, it also feels extremely lonely. It feels like a very, very lonely place, and so that's one of the biggest things that really strikes me. And I think it does have to do with the oppression and feeling like we can't speak and share and commune around the things that women go through in their lifetime. And so yeah, fear, scared, and loneliness is what comes up for me with this one. It's a very powerful, and I agree with Saba, the red was a great choice, I think, for the photographer to really hit home the topic, if that was the topic that they were going for.
I'm blown away by those feelings from it, because I experienced it very differently, and I wonder if this is because I wasn't identifying with it. I wasn't experiencing it through the lens of a female experience, because when it came up, to me it was just an image of power. It was an image of strength. It was an image of, I don't know, it just felt like almost like Roman, sort of centurion. And so I didn't have a reaction in that way, because I thought this is an image of power. So it didn't have the same impact on me. So I'm so grateful for the descriptions that you've given, because now I'm looking at this and looking at myself and going, wow, okay, didn't see that. And that's kind of weird and a bit worrying.
Can I just jump in and remind you of the no judgment space for yourself? You can't get this wrong, Paul. I don't think there's anything. There's stuff maybe to think about. There's nothing to judge. Would anyone else on the panel like to comment before we move on? Amazing. So next image is Aqsa's. Are you still Yes, you are. Brilliant. Okay. So this was Amanda, this was your choice, your top choice. And would you like to kick off with your response and how this image made you feel?
For me, it felt very rich, very powerful, very regal, and it felt like an image that young women should see and how they should see themselves in terms of being royalty. However, when you look a bit closer at her eyes, I'm not sure she's entirely happy with the crown or with the weight of, maybe her position as a woman. And again, around being silenced, despite being such a powerful being. So yeah, there's some irony in there. There's an oxymoron in there. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't mind jumping in because this was one that I had in my, I think I had in my top 5. I can't remember. I really liked it, and I immediately, when I saw it as a South Asian woman, I immediately kind of thought about cultural abuse and how women are silenced, and she might have the crown, but how women are kind of downtrodden, the kind of patriarchal mindset, and that was what I visioned. So it's almost like trapped by this crown, trapped by this position that she's in. And I just, yeah, I think it's such a beautiful image. I absolutely love it. I love the color as well. Thanks.
This was also,
You go.
no, please go for it. I've already spoken.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to pick up on the point about on a closer look. The expression on her face really triggered me because it looks like fear to me, and I realized in this whole process that the overlap between fear and hate is huge for me. That's yeah, I feel that people who fear me hate me, and people that I fear are the ones that I begin to hate. So I think there's a huge overlap there as well. And her facial expression is just so disturbing to me. It feels as if that thing is about to do something terrible to her.
Thank you, Kate. Oh, do you want to?
Yeah, I think this was also one of my top choices, but I remember thinking too much about it because for me, it's such a complicated image. Even in the simplicity of it, it made me think too much, which in any other context for me would have been like 10 out of 10. But because I was looking for the felt sense, in a way, for me, it was like, it's too smart because I need to work out what's going on. Like I was really conscious of the side perspective and the fact that the person is on the side and the crown is in the middle. And then I was going, how is she holding herself up? And so it was getting me too curious, actually, rather than just feeling it, because then I kind of went, oh, actually, there's a lot in there. So it was definitely, I remember it having an impact, but it made me want to look at it more and work it out, which I guess was not the point of this, because it's such an amazing image.
I'd like to perhaps invite that your response was one of confusion. Your felt sense was confusion, and I think that's amazing. I think in terms of creating artwork, we can create confusion. I think that's genius. So I love that that was your response. I think it's amazing, absolutely amazing. So is there any more responses? On this?
I wanted to just quickly say from a, it did strike me from a portraiture point of view. It's my two favorite colors, turquoise and brown. So I was very drawn to the portrait, and I do think it's really, really beautiful. It felt to me like I didn't actually see it as her crown. I saw it as her husband's crown. And it felt very much the male, female, and fear of what was going to maybe be required of her. So it was very interesting to hear other people say that they felt like it was hers, because I immediately, don't ask me why, I felt like it was her husband's crown. So it's a very, very beautiful photograph. I guess that's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Apparently I've got some tech issues with my mic still. Would you like me to switch mics, or is it all right?
It's very echoey.
Okay. Right, I'm going to stop sharing just for a sec so I can sort my mic out. Sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Right. I'm really thrilled that we have Aqsa here. And Aqsa, I'd love to invite you on to respond and let us know what it's like hearing what the panel have been saying about your image and how that makes you feel.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for selecting my photo, first of all. So it was lovely to hear different responses, and I think that's the beauty of photography. You just leave your work open-ended, and then people can assume different things, and that's really what I was aiming for. So basically, just a little background about the crown. It was basically part of my thesis work, and I was commenting on colonization, and it's the crown made out of metal. And I was looking at the St. Edward's crown that is used for the coronation. So when it was designed for the Queen herself, the height of the crown was shortened, but whereas her father, who was wearing it, it was tall. So I made a taller version, so it seems unisex. It is not commenting on one specific gender. And then to photograph the crown, I really wanted to be there as a protagonist, and I wanted to be a part of the crown with wearing that particular very South Asian cloth material, to comment on a lot of things that started off with the East India Company, but how the photographs came out, the spotlight on me and the crown, and again centralizing the crown, showing a lot of powers happening there. I wanted it to be the center point. Apart from that, about my expressions are a very, very important part of this photography, this whole photo shoot, because I was told time again, I do tend to add some sort of humor to my work, even when I'm talking. So my advisors, they really wanted me to add some sort of humor to the photos, or make it expressive. And that's the reason I'm looking at the crown as if I'm snatching it, or as if there's a lot of happening, like someone said about the talked about the responsibility. And then it's amazing how now as you've said it, looking at it from the point of view of forced marriages and all of these issues happening around, something that arises from South Asian culture. So it's just a lot. I mean, I'm really happy to hear all the responses and how it's coming out, and especially what Sabah says, associating it with forced marriages and patriarchy, which again is a very important thing in our culture. So it's just really lovely to hear all the responses.
Amazing, Aqsa. Thank you so much. It's such a joy to have you on and to hear your responses. Thank you. Right, I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to look at the next image. Okay. So this is Madeleina's image. Just, yeah. So this was Paul, this was your selection. Would you like to kick off the response?
I mean, I'd like to kick off. Like this, I still, every time I see this, I just roll my eyes and it makes me angry. And I'm so, like, Aqsa's image made me think, this just made me feel. And that's why I just kept going back to it. I kept going back to it. When I think about how many images like this I've seen in the last 7 or 8 years, they've just become like wallpaper. And there was something about this popping up in amongst some, you know, incredibly beautiful, artistic, stylish images that just had such an impact on me. And yeah, I hate it. I hate it because it's amazing. And everything about it just makes me angry. Just what it represents, the expressions on people's faces. Like it's like you could turn this into a painting because it looks so perfectly posed and arranged, and yet it's not. And so yeah, I love it because I can't bear it. Honestly, it makes me feel so angry. And I think this is probably the longest I've looked at it compared to the process of just a few seconds here and there, because as I look more at it, I get really interested. I look at the top right hand corner and the mirror reflection and who's actually in the bus, and then the camera in the bottom left, and then I get really curious. But yeah, that curiosity is not something that I really want to feel about this, because it just, everything about it makes me angry. So I just, whoever created this incredible image, I wish you hadn't, but I'm so grateful that you did, because I can't, honestly, I could not stop thinking about it. And even seeing it again now, I hate it even more because it's perfect.
Amazing, thank you. Anyone else like to comment on how this image makes them feel?
I feel embarrassed, actually. Yeah, I feel embarrassment. But for the behavior, it's the behavior, because these are adults, and it's a behavior, you know, and a choice. It's a choice. And then I was thinking about the coronation that's just passed and how the UK is represented in one light, but then in reality, you've got, you know, images like this. Yeah, I'm trying to understand the mindset of these groups of people, and what that means for the world we live in terms of hate. It's sad. It's sad.
It also sparks in me actually some. I'm sitting here, my body's gone really tense because it sparks in me the thing that I've been feeling for the last maybe 7 or 8 years as well, which is somehow that someone wants me to hate other people. And I think this Brexit was the epitome of that. I felt like I was being encouraged to hate the other. You know, as a Remainer, I felt like I was being told that I should hate Leavers, and I resent that. I don't want to be encouraged to hate. And for me, this image just says that. My gut response is, oh, those stupid people that were lied to, that bought the lie. I don't want to hate them, but somehow I have become more hateful in the past few years, and I don't want it.
Yeah, this image, I remember when it came up, I just said no straight away. And I think it's because recently I've been involved with quite a bit of what's going on with the far right and their dehumanization and abuse of the transgender community. So when I saw this, it immediately made me think of that, and I just went, I just don't want to see it move along. It's an image that I literally probably see on a daily basis, that I have seen on a daily basis for not even weeks or months, but like others have said, for years. And it invokes so many different feelings in me. It makes me really embarrassed as a person, as a human being, that I'm surrounded, I live amongst these people. It makes me really sad at the ignorance of these people and the stupidity of these people. I'm not shy, I'd say it to their faces if I had to. So it just invokes a lot of different feelings, but I think predominantly, yeah, for me, it is just how we, as a country, we've just become like them and us. And that makes me angry, because I just think we've progressed so far. And this image, rightly so, I mean, we're talking about hate, aren't we? It's probably the biggest hate image out of all of them, because that's what it does. It's invoking hate. It's hate for other people. It's hate for a group because of, you know, lack of understanding. And it makes me feel for people that feel intimidated. I didn't know the nationality or where this person came from that took this picture, but I immediately just thought, God, I really hope they feel loved. And that's kind of how I felt, that, you know, I want these people to know that they're loved, and that just this is a tiny minority that's stupid. Yeah, that was it for me. That was how I got. I was like, I don't want to know. I'm sick of the far right. They really pissed me off, and I want these people to feel love. That's it.
Amazing, thank you. So, Lynette, sorry.
Well, I'm in the US, as you know, and my gut feeling is that it reminds me so much of what we experienced here on January 6, 2021 with the storming of the Capitol. And it brings up that incident that happened brought up so many feelings for me around the same things that everyone else has been speaking about, is embarrassment. That it was a small group, but they represent something really negative in our society, and sadness, and fear, and that, you know, I hope that the positive can, you know, be stronger than the negative. And yeah, this one just really, and so I guess it makes me feel like this is happening in so many more places than just obviously in the UK, because it just feels the exact same feelings that I had on January 6th watching the storming of our Capitol building. And so it's not just in the UK, it's here and probably lots of other places, and it's scary and sad and embarrassing.
I just say one more thing about it, like, as I'm looking at it now, and honestly, I genuinely think this is like the most perfect image. There's almost like a golden ratio, like a Fibonacci sequence in the layout of it. And the way that some of the people, you can see their faces, and others are kind of covered by this mess on the window, and some are, and there's this whole thing there about transparency and visibility and the high vis. You know, there's a kid there, and I just think it is, for me, it's just the perfect image. And the sad thing for me is that if I saw an image that I thought was so perfect, I would want it on the wall. And with this, I don't. It's one of those things where I love it so much, I hope I never see it again.
Thank you.
That was hilarious. That was absolute. I'm so glad I was muted, Paul, because it was the Fibonacci sequence. But I wanted to add one more thing. Part of me, in terms of feeling sad, also kind of then thinks about poverty in the UK, because, you know, what's the root cause to this behaviour? You know, what's really going on for these communities? what's going on.
Thank you. Madeleina, we have the artist here. Would you like to feedback what it's been like listening to the responses to your art?
Yeah, thanks for all of your comments. I found them really, kind of insightful and quite poignant. I think this image is quite interesting because it's fairly obvious what's going on in the way that the other images are maybe more abstract and more down to interpretation. I can't really claim to be a photographer. I am a visual artist, a performer and activist, and where I make photography and also documentaries, it's very much from kind of an authentic perspective. So it's just been about recording and documenting my experiences as a creative campaigner. So to give some context for that image, this was in 2018. It was around the Brexit debates when things were getting very, very tense in the country, and there was a lot of division. And we were driving a bus around the country with "Bollocks to Brexit" written on the side of it, which had become the slogan of the Remain campaign. And I, along with a Boris Johnson impersonator, were singing songs at every stop that we went to along the country. So for me, I find hate a very difficult emotion that I struggle with. I don't really feel hate towards people. I'm not an angry person. I'm not a confrontational person. I'm very empathetic, and I try to see things from other people's points of view, and I try to communicate my beliefs creatively because it's non-aggressive. So the emotion that I was feeling at that point on the bus was pure fear. And I think that's kind of represented in the image. We were trapped on the bus. This was in Durham. The EDL, the Yellow Vests, had organised to basically gate crash our event. We couldn't do the event. We couldn't get off the bus. They threw eggs at the screen, and they stood in front of the bus, and the police refused to move them. So we couldn't move on to the next stop. And this basically ruined the whole day that we had planned of stops around the country. So there was frustration, there was frustration, there was fear. And I think that for me it's very, very sad, because I really appreciate what you said, Amanda, also about poverty, because I think I've spoken a lot of times with these far-right activists. I've interviewed them. I've really tried my best to understand where they're coming from and where their views come from. But in this incident, I have a lot of photos that I've taken of far-right protests, but it was this specific incident where they were essentially causing me and the whole group that I was with harm, emotional harm, also, disrupting all of the plans that we had for the whole day. And I think that's why I went with this particular image.
Amazing. Thank you, Madeleina. Thank you for that insight and a little bit more background on what you do, which sounds amazing. Thank you. And I just wanted to make the point that everyone who's got a camera is a photographer. You don't, I didn't want you to think that because you're not calling yourself a pro that you're not part of this as much as everyone else. So thank you for your submission, and it's really important as part of what I do is that anyone can enter an image. The part of this is to deconstruct the elitism and intellectualization of art. So thank you very much. Okay, we've got 2 images left. Doing quite well for time. The next one is Victoria's. So Nanette, this was your top choice. Do you want to give us a little bit of insight into how you responded to this image?
Sure. This image is really, really strong for me. On a very personal level, but not in more expansive than that also. In our country, we have a tradition in lots of areas where they skewer a pig and they roast it as a celebration outdoors, and it's a big celebration, and I've always refused to go to those because they just disgust me, and I can't be at a party that's celebrating with this big, skun pig, and after they roast it, they put an apple in its mouth, and they put it on a platter. And when I looked at this image, that's all I could see, is this woman who felt like she was a fat stuffed pig that had been skewered and put an apple in her mouth. And that's how low it felt to me. And it felt very, very personal about how I feel about my own body, how the women that I work with have expressed to me how they feel about their bodies. And also because I don't eat meat, it brings all of that up for me too, about how we feel and what we do with animals. And it just really, really, it makes me angry. It makes me feel ashamed. It just really evokes very, very strong emotions for me. And the fact that she has her eyes closed too, I think makes it even more powerful. That she's just not in, it feels like she has no control, that these have been placed in her mouth to keep her quiet. And oh boy, there's just so much around this image. I could talk for a long time, but it is very, very powerful and very strong, and a brilliant image. The minute I saw it, I had such strong reaction, and I just think it's very, very well done.
Thank you. And I remember our lengthy conversation about it during your selection. And we also talked around the dehumanization of women, didn't we?
Yes.
Literally, how sometimes it can feel that we are hog roasts, that we're on a spit, we're roasted, and then we're consumed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Humanity.
Pardon me?
Yeah, that was it. I was just to say that, humanity.
Yeah, it's got so many things going on here in this one image, and very, very powerful.
Thank you for sharing your vulnerability there. Would anyone else like to comment on how this makes them feel?
I mean, I don't think I went with this one because I think my initial reaction to it was I thought it was quite sexy, which, as a gay man, I didn't look at this image and go, oh, look, a woman. I just kind of went, oh, there's a bit of, again, it was power. There was something there about despite her having her eyes closed, there was something there about the way that she had positioned herself, and the hands almost like forming an arrow, and there was something there about like the lemon. So no, there was something I kind of felt like it was life gives you lemons, make lemonade. There was so much in it that I just didn't take as that sense of it had been placed there. To me, I just thought, oh, this is quite, there's something in there that's powerful, and there's a solidity, and and a vulnerability with that power. So yeah, interesting that I'm seeing these so differently, or feeling so differently about them. It's again, great image, but I just kind of went, oh yeah, quite sexy, next. But it's not, you know, in that respect, it's not meant for me. It's not, you know, I'm not there to go, oh, this is what I think.
For me, I don't like the image in terms of it's not something I don't want to look, I want to see the next image. I was, you know, but having heard other people's reflections, the word forbidden came to mind, or forbidden fruit even, which then got me thinking a bit further. Yeah, the forbidden fruit message in being forbidden, even though desired at the same time. Submission as well comes to mind. Dominance, control. Yeah, I'm ready to see the next image.
I just want to echo what Paul said, actually, because I felt the same as you, Paul. Because when I saw the image, I can see what you mean about the hog roast kind of vision, but for me, it just looked like she was pleasuring herself, and you know, that kind of almost ecstasy in her face, and the hands are where they're positioned. It's almost like she's making a vagina shape as well. So that's very much what I saw. And it's interesting because having looked at it for quite a while now, I didn't even realize there was a reflection of her face on her body. So I was kind of wondering if that meant anything. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, no, I didn't. I just thought, Paul, I didn't want you to think you were the only one, but that's exactly what I thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Victoria couldn't stay to feedback on this image, which is such a shame because judging with the very different responses, it would have been lovely to hear from her about what was behind this image. But the mystique will live on. So next image is the final image. This one is Kay's choice by Yanqui. So Kay, would you like to kick off?
Yes. So I had a huge emotional response when I first saw this, because this little girl, and I have assigned her girl because she's me. And there were so many embodied things in this picture for me. Sitting comfortably on the ground and playing with bubbles. That's me as a child. And I was so comfortable sitting on the ground that I would sit on the ground in the playground at school, or when we were waiting for the bus. And also if I was playing with something like bubbles, I was so transfixed by, you can just see them here, the rainbows that you get in a bubble when you, as a kid, you blow a bubble and the light shines through it and there are rainbows. And then some bubbles move faster than others and some are bigger. And it just expresses my absolute obsession with physics, chemistry, and biology as a child. And I was so fucking brilliant when I was a kid. But so that's the emotional thing. This is me as a child, and I'm so happy. This is all I ever want to do, is sit on the ground and look at bubbles. But the hate comes in because that got not literally beaten, but it got beaten out of me by the system, which said that, oh, well, if you want to be a scientist, you've got to sit at a desk and learn stuff. And okay, I did that. I was really good at it. And that was the problem. I became a person who sat at a desk. And then, oh, you can't sit on the floor because that's not ladylike. So you've got to be more girl. And you've got to sit with your knees, with your legs crossed or your knees together, or whatever. And it just brought up all of that, the way I hate the system that didn't allow me to be that fabulous little girl in the image. And as I'm talking to you now, I can feel the tears coming into my eyes. And I'm beginning to get myself back. I've been beginning to get myself back for a few years now. But, you know, the system also had me caged in this, or you've got to make a living, so you can't sit on the ground cross-legged and blow bubbles, because who's going to pay you to do that? I'm slowly beginning to come back into myself again, but it's taken a long time. And it also brings up in me, I don't want other people to go through this shit of not being allowed to be themselves, that we should all be allowed to spend hours looking at how bubbles behave. And I think also, you know, the world is being held back by us not allowing people to take time to look at what's going on around them instead of drip feeding knowledge into their heads. So that's my little rant about this beautiful picture. And, you know, the funny thing is I would have this one on the wall because she's me. It's fine. So that's what's behind it.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you for bringing your vulnerability. Would anyone else like to share what's going on?
I think for me, this was one of the images where I didn't feel any hate at all. Although I suffered a lot of childhood trauma, and I don't remember anything from about the age 9 and below. So it's kind of ironic that, you know, I wouldn't even know what I felt at that age. But for me, I think it was just that, like you said, looking through the bubbles, that escapism. So for me, I saw it as like a route of escapism and just kind of getting lost and drifting off. And that's very much what I do sometimes. I mean, I'm really bad at just kind of getting lost in my own little world. So for me, this kind of was like a really positive image, because it allowed me to just kind of disappear and be in my world, and everything around me is kind of missing. So, yeah, but it's really interesting to hear your story, Kay, because that was one of the things I said at the beginning was, for me, it was really interesting how a lot of images were really beautiful, and it was trying to understand the concept behind them. So hearing other people's stories really kind of makes me, you know, just kind of validates how hate can be interpreted in so many different ways, and not just as it's kind of written in black and white. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I feel the same way, that I saw this image as in the inner child and beauty and fascination and mystery. And I didn't understand the hatred piece in this one. And there were several other ones that I felt that way too about, which surprised me in the gallery. And it would be fun to explore the other ones too, because now that Kay has told her story on this one, I see it so clearly and I feel it. But I hadn't seen that before. And this one reminded me then, and it does now, of my 2 daughters playing bubbles when things were so simple and easy with them, and how just much more complicated it's become with them. Now they're 29 and 30 years old, and but it's a beautiful image. And Kay, I hope that you do have this right by your side to remind you, and good luck on your path of rediscovering. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, anytime you want to go sit on the ground and blow bubbles, I'll come with you. Because I didn't have the same response, but hearing your story is giving me a different response, which was that I never did this as a kid. And it's weird because I never really think of myself as like a fun person or a light-hearted person. And I think I missed a lot of this experience because there was, I don't know, it just wouldn't have been a thing to do for me. I would have rather just stayed indoors and read a book. So I often, like along the South Bank in London, there's lots of people with these kind of big buckets of bubbles and lots of kids, and they're all jumping at them. And I always walk past and feel a bit cross because I'm like, oh, look at them having fun. So I think I maybe just ignored this one because it just had no reference, or I had no reference to it. And now it's making me think, yeah, I could probably do with sitting on the ground, blowing some bubbles as well, actually. So thank you for giving that perspective.
Well, thank you, Paul. And it's a date. I'll stroll down to the Barbican with some bubbles. And if I could just follow up on that, because I think a lot of people, I love this Saba blows bubbles for her cats. A lot of people, I can see how you would see this as fun. But when I was doing this kind of thing as a child, I was deathly serious. I was studying how this happened. And I don't see, if I walked around to look at her from the other side, she's not smiling. She is seriously doing scientific experiments here, which is what I've always loved to do. And play for me as a child was never really fun. I liked serious play. I need to know what the cat's response to the bubbles is though, Saba.
They love that. They kind of get a bit like, what the hell's going on? And then they sort of try and poke them and
Thank you for sharing, Kay. I'm a big advocate for inner child work and inner child play. I think there's a lot of magic in us that is often laying dormant because of having to work and pay bills and survive in this world. But children are very gifted, and those gifts are often hidden or forgotten. And so go and get some bubbles. I'm inspired. I'm going to get some bubbles for my nieces, I think, over the weekend and have some fun. Thank you.
I wish I'd bought shares in a bubbles company before.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for your amazing responses. And we've got some time left. I'm happy to finish early, but also happy to open up the discussion if anyone would like to comment on anything they've seen or have a look at another one of the images again. Do shout. That would be lovely.
go for it, Kevin. We can't hear you. Kevin, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Right, hi, Catherine. Thank you for inviting me to join the discussions. Always wonderful to be here. Just want to let me know regarding the bubbles. Did you blow your own bubbles, or did you make them like a little girl with a ring and a pail? Did you blow your own bubble?
So that's a great question, Kevin. So my original bubbles were always washing up liquid in a mixing bowl that my mum and grandma would have used for making cakes. So washing up liquid and water in a mixing bowl. And then I would use a pair of scissors, so the round bit at the end of a piece of scissors, as my dipping thing. And then I would experiment with 100 different ways to make the ring to blow the bubbles with. And I would experiment with how concentrated the washing up liquid needed to be. So yeah, it was because we were a very poor family, so I couldn't buy those ready-made things.
Very good, very good. I just like to say that in Japanese, there's a term called hashi. Hashi is a moving border, which we can't really see. Say, for example, when we expel our breath during winter, we can actually see our breath coming out. So we actually have a visualization of space coming from without, and we can see it because it is a vapor in vapor form. So that vapor coming out would be our border moving from ourselves into the Mars space, the negative space outside of our body. Now, I'd like to say, because we are a scientist, bubbles, for me anyway, is one molecule thick, a membrane of water and then whatever chemicals there, 1 membrane thick. So they're rather magical in that sense. It's the only thing that we make as humans that are 1 molecule thick, we expel out. And if you were to blow into a bubble, you're effectively expressing yourself into a space that moves away from you physically that you can actually see. And in itself, you are casting out yourself into a space that you can visibly see moving into another space, creating a bridge, a hashi between the negative space, which is the ma outside your body, with yourself. And you can visualize it through your brain, through your eyes and through your brain and to yourself. So it's quite magical. So please continue. Very interesting, yeah.
I cannot follow that, but can we stop now? Because that's just fucking awesome. Sorry.
Yes. So scientifically, something for you to experiment more in terms of a philosophical and a scientific idea. Yeah. I think is a wonderful thing to explore and consider. And that was very special for me to hear your sadness associated with what is actually a very on appearance a happy looking picture, yet you had a very strong Proustian link to your past, which was very, very sad for you, because what was once happy for you has now been taken away. But like the bubble, it's you can make more, so it's okay. And it's cheap to do as well. Fairy liquid is cheap. Eh?
That's amazing. And yeah. Can I just say also how good that makes me feel that you listen so carefully to my description of why that did what it did for me.
Yeah.
And were inspired to give us that example. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. That was amazing. Could you just pop into the chat how you spell?
Yes, okay, hashi, yeah.
Yeah.
So there are 2 concepts we're looking at here. We're looking at a negative space, which the Japanese consider to be ma, or the Chinese call it the ma as well. Ma space, negative space. Negative space is substance. Space as substance. There's no negative space. It's ma, and the second one is hashi, H-A-S-H-I.
Great.
Amazing.
Worth looking into these 2 words.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Bless you. Amazing. Well, on that beautiful note, I think, should we call that an evening? There's somebody.
I didn't mean it. No, I didn't. You don't have to.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to my beautiful panel. Thank you to everyone that's come. I really appreciate your time. It's lovely to see you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And please go out into the world noticing yourself more through the art that you see, the music that you hear, nature, movement, everything. And just show yourself compassion, kindness and love. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Catherine, and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you all.
Yeah.
Thanks. I just
What
wanted to say that it's
what a wonderful place this is. Eh? What a wonderful space this is. Eh? Lovely, isn't it?
Madeleina, what were you going to say?
Basically the same thing. Because I engage with politics quite a lot, I'm used to like very antagonistic, aggressive conversations, and this was just like a really like happy, inclusive, thoughtful space, and it was really nice to be welcomed into it.
Bless your heart. Thank you. That's really beautiful to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. The safety for everyone to be able to share, non-judgmentally. And I think more people need to be able to just, sit and reflect and see and share different perspectives of the world, because, emotions don't have to be negative. And yeah, but then at the same time, okay, no, I'm not going to waffle. No, I'm going to the gym. Good. Lovely to meet you all. And to the artists, thank you for sharing your gifts with the world. Keep creating, keep spreading your magic. And Catherine, you are amazing. Bye, everybody.
Can I quickly add one thing as well? So I wouldn't be me if I don't add this, but it's really interesting. Obviously, we've been talking about hate and how to combat it. I'm working with a couple of other people on a campaign, which is called Trans People Are Loved. I don't know, Catherine, you might have seen it on my feed. And that's basically what we've decided is led by, we're calling on allies to actually step up because of all the hatred and the hate towards the trans community. I won't go into detail, but what we've decided is to do a global campaign with Pride coming up, and it's going to be ongoing, is to basically let trans people know they're loved. So it's sending out global messages of love. And the whole thing is we're not interacting with hate. If there's any hate, we're just going to delete it, get rid of it. And it's purely about spreading love. So I just thought that fitted in so beautifully with what we're talking about here, that actually you can overcome hate by love.
Thank you. And that's exactly the conversation I had on Insta Live today with Katie Brindle. And actually, Saba, I would love to talk to you afterwards about an interview that I've got coming up later on this month with somebody that Kay put me in touch with, Corey. It would be lovely to mention, you use what you've just said in that interview. Yeah, so we'll speak afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone wants to know about the campaign? We're looking for allies.
What do we look for, Saba? Is it?
I'll put it in the WhatsApp group.
Great, thank you. Yes.
And I'll share it.
That'd be amazing.
On the page. Yeah, lovely. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.